The GDP of Hong Kong, the Pearl of the Orient, fell by 1.2% in 2019. It is the first negative annual growth in 10 years. Visitors to Hong Kong fell by 39.1% in the second half of 2019.
It's a beautiful sight to behold, and I commend the courage of the people there.
I'd like to speak directly to the people of Hong Kong. America stands with you.
Fundamental freedoms, freedom of speech, of assembly, of demonstration, that are guaranteed by law to the people of Hong Kong.
The National Endowment for Democracy, a veteran anti-China foundation financed by the US government, has been discovered to have spent more than $10 million to fund secessionist organizations and subversive activities in China in 2020. Hong Kong seemed to be an investment priority, with more than $2 million in grants given to at least 11 anti-China organizations and projects. From 1994 to 2018, the NED has invested over $10 million in Hong Kong. The rioters in Hong Kong are clearly organized. They communicate with professional gesture and confront the police orderly. Rioters work in different groups such as investigation team and media team. These actions are from a series of textbooks from the US. Foreign commanders also appeared in demonstrations. Hong Kong secessionists were found meeting with foreign diplomats in 2019. They also met with senior officials from the US, UK, and other Western countries. On November 27, 2019, then US President Donald Trump signed the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act and the Hong Kong Protection Act, interfering in China's internal affairs. Western media reports turned a blind eye to the atrocities of the rioters, slandered the Hong Kong police, and portrayed the rioters as heroes of democracy.
那再看整个这个运动组织过程中的我说的颜色革命典型的标记，所有这些人链也好，银行挤兑也好，这个标语口号也好，招章也好，手势也好，这都是受过专业培训。
In 2010, a color revolution erupted in Tunisia after a social conflict. The riots were immediately praised by Western countries, which then swept across the whole Arab world in a chain reaction known as the Arab Spring. As early as the G8 summit in 2004, US President George W. Bush formally launched a new strategy called the Greater Middle East Initiative. US NGOs trained and funded tens of thousands of Arab activists. A group of bloggers in countries such as Egypt, Syria, and Tunisia are trained to become opinion leaders, promoting so-called democracy and freedom, and criticizing governments of their own countries in all kinds of network platforms. Even Hillary Clinton cheered for the blogger platform.
It is a strategic necessity.
According to a book named The Hidden Side of the Arab Revolution, from 2005 to 2010, the US spent nearly $20 million per year and trained more than 10,000 Egyptian cyber geeks. In addition, the US has systematically trained the backbone of street protesters to ensure that the demonstrators' activities are well organized. These tactics are the same as inciting riots in Hong Kong. However, the Arab people were eventually hurt by the rosy picture painted by the West. Arab Spring from 2011 to 2015 caused 1.4 million deaths. 15 million have become refugees and $900 billion were lost. In October 2004, the presidential election was held in Ukraine. The US sent hundreds of election experts to advise opposition leader Viktor Yushchenko. When Yushchenko failed the second round of voting, he accused the Ukrainian election of fraud. US President George W. Bush and US Secretary of State Colin Powell repeatedly backed Yushchenko's accusations. Millions of supporters of Yushchenko gathered in the center of Kiev, and a series of protests, sit-ins, and general strikes organized by the opposition party broke out across the country. Ukraine's Supreme Court had to annul the election and call a new one amid the protests. Yushchenko was re-elected with 52% of the vote. Several former Soviet states like Ukraine, Georgia, Kyrgyzstan, and Serbia witnessed color revolutions that toppled pro-Russian governments and established pro-US governments. There is no sign that the US will stop inciting color revolution in other countries for either ideological or geopolitical reasons.